new sound, it's a new approach to synthesis and combining the acoustic and the digital. But as Marco said, you know, the product is the soul, and for us it's the music that's really the soul of what we're doing. But in order to do that, we developed a whole tool chain. And actually, often when I talk about the Seaboard, I talk about the design and the lines and the, you know, milled aluminum and the chamfers, because I'm a product designer. But really, to pull this off, we had to build a technology tool chain. You know, beginning with the materials science of the silicon and the sensor technology and all of the kind of mechanical engineering and firmware. But what we found was that the most difficult part was the software framework, because there's lots of existing synths out there that have been in development for decades, and they're all different. So we had this challenge of how do we connect this new rich data that we can create through the Seaboard to these existing software platforms, which all use like slightly different standards. And so what we found was there's a great framework called Juice, which is a dominant framework in the audio industry. Many plug-in developers and synth developers use it. And by building the Seaboard using the same framework, we were able to kind of bridge that gap. So you know, that was a powerful move for us at the time. But then, as the company developed, and now, you know, as we're shipping Seaboards around the world and, you know, developing our next stage of R&D, we started to ask a bigger question, which is, what would it mean to connect, you know, sensory input to digital output much more broadly? Because it's not just piano keyboards that are antiquated. So many of the touch technologies that we use are based on instruments that were developed decades ago or even centuries ago. Think about, you know, every time you type, you're basically using the input equivalent of a typewriter, or even a mouse now sends very little information, and our brains are so fast, and computers are also so powerful. So we're asking this question, how do we expand the bandwidth of interaction between our brains and technology? Now, in order to do that, we need a broader interface technology toolchain, which is not just for music. And once again, we found that we had this key problem, which is how do you create a software framework? Because it turns out that everything in the early stage of the toolchain, it's not very advanced. There's not a lot of advanced sensor technologies and material technologies. We had to create those. But we could control that in-house. But we can't control all of the end-user applications out in the world. We needed to connect to those. So I'm incredibly proud and excited to get to make a major announcement in the life of our young startup right here today for the first time at Slush, which is that we've acquired Juice. And joining me today on stage is Julian Storer, the creator and founder of Juice, to tell you a little bit about his journey getting to this point and what we have in store at Rolly.
Thanks very much, Rowan. No, it's really exciting. Thank you. Really exciting to be here announcing the announcement today, and to be officially now a new member of the Rolly team. Juice has been around for a long time now. I started it back in the early 2000s from my own frustration with the tools that were out there, and what started out as just a handful of me building a few utility classes and keeping them on one side has sort of evolved and grown over the years to the point now where we have thousands of developers out there, and it's reached a scale where pretty much every piece of music you hear now and every movie you see is very likely to have used at least one piece of Juice-based software somewhere in its production, whether that's an audio plugin or some sort of recording tool or a whole DAW. Yeah, somewhere there'll be some Juice in there. So for the last 10 years I've been working entirely on my own, which is a really good way to build a library, because it means that it's consistent. You get one personality. It makes for good code, but it was starting to get a little bit out of hand in terms of scale, and yeah, I needed help. So I was very lucky that about a year ago I started working with the Rolly team, helping them out on some other software, and we got on very well. I loved what they were doing, and I thought Roland's built the most fantastic team building some terrific hardware, and it's going to be really exciting that I can now join them and help them build some really great software to complement the hardware. I'm really looking forward to what we're going to build in the future, and I think we're going to learn a lot from each other.
Yeah, so it's an exciting moment for us, and to kind of be expanding that and expanding outwards. And just to contextualize it a little bit, you know, what this means for us is that it gives us our own like development context for the Seaboard. And as you know, it's not just about putting out an API or an SDK for your hardware. It's really about creating a wonderful experience for developers and building a community of developers. And Jules has already built a great community, and we're going to be able to kind of connect the dots between our hardware innovation and innovation and Jules's community. So it's a little bit like, as a metaphor, analogous to you know, Apple having Xcode built in, because they've built the value of Apple devices is not just the beautiful hardware, it's the richness of ecosystem that they've created, and that richness comes from the power of their frameworks and their IDE. You know, obviously we're bigger than Apple, but you know, otherwise the analogy holds. So just to like give a little bit of context, this is what our toolchain will now look like. And as an example, so Swam Engine, this is a really good sound engine. These guys are Juice customers. They've been using Juice for a long time. And one thing I always wanted to do with the Seaboard was connect it to sounds of wind instruments. And they make some of the best wind instruments in the world. So now that the Seaboard is built with Juice, and obviously Swam is built with Juice, it's easier for us to connect the dots. So maybe Marco, you could give us a little taste of a saxophone on the Seaboard. Jules is now going to be joined with a great advisory panel at Juice, including David Ziccarelli, who's the founder of Cycling 74. Some of you will have heard of Max MSP, which is a great framework for creative coding. Also Andrew Bell, who's the founder of Cinder, another great C++ framework for creative coding. And we're building, you know, a team around Juice. We're really going to expand it horizontally as a framework. And look to build embedded systems and creative coding to make it you know, more valuable for educational context as well. One amazing thing that you should all check out is the Producer that Jules built. So it's a real-time C++ compiler where you can actually see the code as it compiles. And he's done a proof of concept of this, and this is something we're really excited to be able to push forward at Rolly. But more broadly, we'll also be able to build out our kind of vertical technology chain to begin taking on new interface challenges beyond the area of music. So I think, you know, getting back to where Marco started, you know, product is the soul, but the tool chain is the thing that makes it possible to have product innovation, and that innovation will always be constrained by the weakest link in one's tool chain. And so, however one does it, as you build a company, if you can build out that tool chain, you know, and build all of the different kind of competencies within a team, then it becomes possible to truly innovate. And that's what we're very excited to be able to do together, working on products like the Seaboard, like Juice, and more things to come. So thank you very much for your attention today, and please stay tuned at rolly.com and juice.com, and come and chat with us afterwards if you have any questions.